Former Huskers turning success in sport to success in business. This is Red to Black.
My name is Aaron Davis, and this is how I went from red to black.
Another episode of Red to Black. Chris Gorman, Pat Safford, here with Aaron Davis. Hi, Aaron.
How you guys doing, man? Good
Great.
to be here.
How are you?
Doing well, man. Doing well.
Thanks for having no idea what our show's about and agreeing to come on. That's very brave. That is very brave of you.
I call it as a former bench warmer wide receiver, it's going over the middle. You never,
As we were preparing for this interview, I'm like, I think all we need to do is just say, "How are you doing, Aaron?" And then you would take it because you do this for a living.
Right. That's so different than talking to some athletes that just they are great on the field, but just they don't like to speak publicly a lot.
Yeah.
So so this is a blessing for us.
Absolutely. Well, it's cool to be here. Thank you.
So, and we were talking, before we started recording, and I'm like, yeah, you were a stud on the field. And you're like, I was a cheerleader on the field. Growing up in Nebraska like I did, if you were on the field, even if you were a walk-on with a helmet who was only on the field during practice, you were still considered a stud. So you're still in that category.
Well, I appreciate it. It was a good time. And the older I get, the more I appreciate it. That's for sure.
So let's take it back. In our research and talking about like your history, I mean, it sounds like you built up some resiliency pretty early on in your life, like helping with your dad, doing janitorial work.
Absolutely.
Really. Like, talk to us about that.
I grew up on 1305 North 25th. I mean, directly over in that direction. And Nebraska football has always been big for me, in that even from our backyard, I could hear the fans, on Saturdays,
awesome.
man.
That's pretty awesome, yeah.
It was awesome. So that was always a dream for me. But my father was a janitor for 40 plus years and cleaned two prominent businesses here in town, very big places. And it was just him and me and my older brothers. And my sisters helped out. So from about 8 years old, 7, 8 years old, I was going to work with my dad at, 4 o'clock in the afternoon when we got out of school. And that's when the janitor obviously goes when everybody's leaving for the day, and would empty out, tons of trash cans. And back in the day when you could smoke in your office, tons of ashtrays and clean bathrooms, buff floors, wax them, and vacuum floors. And so that work ethic started young with us, in that there are a lot of days I didn't feel like going, but I'm glad and I'm grateful that my dad had us do that early on to teach us that work ethic and that hard work. And I think it's really synonymous with, it's kind of one of those unthankful jobs until something's wrong, then you notice it. If your trash is not empty, you notice it. When it is, you don't pay any attention.
That's a really good point, yeah.
And as a scout team guy like I was, it's kind of like, you kind of forgotten, if you would. Your teammates knew it, your coaches appreciate it, but the fans tend to forget. But when the team's losing, it's always like, man, did they even practice this week? That's a deflection on us.
Right? Right at you. Right.
So, it really built me up for that. It was a lot of fun, but there was so many lessons I learned pushing them up. My father would always say, your name is on it with every task that you did, whether it was wiping down a window or sink or mirror. Every job you do, he would say, son, every job you do, your name is on it.
Wow, that is such a great way to look at that. That's great. I wish I knew that like 15 years ago, teaching that to my kids, because trying to get that passion in them to just do whatever the job is, to do it right. Your name is on it. It just cuts right to it.
Your name's on it.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Your name's on it.
Dad's a smart guy.
And he's very, very wise man.
Yeah.
Very wise man. So those lessons stuck with me, not only through high school and college, but just throughout my life.
So I read some stories. You might not. There's a chance that you shouldn't be here. There's a chance that your life could have taken a very different, like, hard right turn. Maybe drugs, alcohol, getting in trouble. Like, talk to us about how you maybe turned that corner, and maybe some of the lessons that your dad taught you about turning that corner and turning your life around.
My dad's a pastor. He was a janitor, but he's also a pastor. And being a PK was rough, man. Because in my house growing up, if it wasn't Christian music, you weren't listening to it.
And that's a pastor's kid?
Yes.
A PK.
I'm a PK. Yeah, pastor's kid.
Never heard of it called
Yeah. I was a PK, man. You talk to any other pastor's kid, they know about the PK. So you weren't allowed to, my curfew was always earlier than everybody else's. And I grew up in the old adage that my dad said, I brought you in this world, I'll take you out. It was yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. At the time, I thought it was extremely strict, but as a father myself now, at 46 years old with 3 kids, I'm glad my father and mother erred on the side of caution, that let us do anything we wanted to. Because even when I did active football, because I played, like I said, played ball here for 3.5 years, and when I stopped playing ball, I started hanging out with the wrong crowd, wrong group of guys. They weren't doing anything crazy, but just partying. I see my GPA drop, and in 95 season, I'm gonna tell you guys something. You talking about lifelong regrets? I do believe in regrets. Sometimes people say, "Well, live with no regrets." I think that's an oxymoron. I don't know how you can live and not
impossible,
have.
right?
Yeah, it's impossible.
Yeah,
if you don't have any regrets, you probably didn't do much.
Yeah.
But when the 95 team, which I was supposed to be on, to see that team win and knowing that I was supposed to be on that team, but I left at my own, and finances was a part too. I was a walk-on. So that was obviously a part of it, but I could have made it happen.
Yeah.
That was something I said, I missed that opportunity. That was a huge turning point for me. I said, cut some of the guys I was hanging out with, and they weren't bad guys. They were just doing things that just weren't, they're just partying.
Were those guys a part of one of the reasons why you didn't go back and make it happen, like you said, your friends?
Oh yeah. Some of the guys I was hanging out with, definitely.
They weren't pushing you in that direction.
No.
They were more like, come on, Aaron, hang.
Exactly. Because I tell college students all the time, the crowd that you're associating with right now, I always say, show me your friends, I'll show you future. Show me your friends, I'll show you future. Because people you're hanging out with, they're pulling you up or pulling you down. There's no neutrality here. And I was hanging out with a bunch of guys that they were hanging out, acting a fool. So I started acting a fool with them, because you become who you associate with. And so that was a big turning point. And I was like, I'm done. Got back to full-time status in school and went to start playing football again in 96. And it shows you how life changes. My roommate I was living with at the time, though, was murdered in the summer of 96. And at that point, my life took a real sharp turn towards I just want to finish school. I didn't want to, it's one of my childhood best friends, murdered in our apartment, just right down the street from campus, in fact.
Wow.
Right by Pinzer Park.
I mean, at that age, that'll shake anybody up at any age. But at that age.
It'll shake you. It'll shake you up big time. And it just changed me quite a bit. I just said, I was just dialed in. Although I miss football, I just want to get done with school and finish on my life, but still always have great relationships with my former teammates. Coach Osborne, since I was like 9, because one of my older brothers was the equipment manager for the Husker football team when he was in college.
Oh, that's cool.
So I've been hanging out at that stadium since 1983, 84, man. So those relationships, they were more than just coaches to me. They were, role models from a very early age. So that term, back to your point though, after my roommate was killed, I said, that's it. I said, I'm better than this. My parents and ancestors and great-grandfathers sacrificed a lot for me to be, pouring it all down the drain with stupid choices. So that was kind of the thing that straightened me out, man.
So when you were a kid, hearing the roar of the crowd and, following, Coach Osborne, and, did you ever envision yourself playing on that field?
I had dreams, aspirations of doing it. In fact, my first real job, Coach Solich gave me my first real job. I was the equipment manager, the ball boy for the Husker football camps in the summer when they used to have those. Yeah. And I'd be out there playing on the field between sessions, me and Jeff Solich, Coach Solich's son, the Davis boys when they were real little. I think Josh may have been a little too young, but Coach Tony Davis's sons, we'd be on the field running around. And I had dreams of one day playing for Nebraska, and I wasn't the fastest, strongest guy. I had offers from a lot of, D2 schools. Iowa State did, but Iowa State's like, you're not going to Iowa State. No disrespect, but
that's not happening.
No, Air Force Academy. I knew I wasn't a military cut, although a lot of my family are. But Nebraska, when Coach Osborne offered me the opportunity to walk on, to me it was a no-brainer. So I did have big dreams of playing football in Nebraska, man. You hear those yells from the crowd in our backyard, and we'd be in the backyard playing tackle football at Whittier, which is now owned by the university. All that field, we used to go up there and play football in the field and just watch the fans walk towards the game. We couldn't afford to go to games.
Awesome, yeah.
It was cool just watching them go to the game. So we'd play a football game in Whittier or in Pinzer Park while Nebraska was playing. And cool. We'd call out our names, who we were. I was Irving Fryer, and sometimes Dana Brinson, So all those memories, man, it led up to the thing to where I was like, I hope I get a chance to do that, and have an opportunity to do it was definitely a dream come true for sure. Especially a small a small time kid like me from here in Nebraska, man, it was a lot of fun.
How many games did you get in?
You know, I played in quite a few. I can't say quite a few. I had one catch.
Yeah. Hey, that's good.
In fact, we were watching the UCLA game, and I hadn't watched this. This was '94 UCLA game, and a buddy of mine I was at home. We've all been at home the past 6 months, but he's sending me these pictures of me against UCLA. I was like, man, I haven't seen that game in years. Literally, probably 20 plus years. Shows me blocking this guy or something like that. So I would get in. I called it the 40-40 rule. We're up 40 seconds. Up 40 points. I got a chance to play. AD, get in there. Right. You know, most of the time I'd have mustard on my jersey, you know. It was funny because there were guys like, you know, pregame stretching.
Yeah.
I'm like, stretch for what? Dude, I got 3 hours before I'm playing. I mean, having my girlfriend bring me hot dogs from the stands. In fact, one story, man, is crazy cool, man. Frazier was one of my roommates too, prior to me having other roommates. So it was me, Tommy Frazier, Barry Miles, and Tyrone Williams. And Tommy was notorious for not eating a whole lot in the morning. And I don't even know what game it was, but it's probably, I don't know, middle of the second quarter, and T. Frey comes, AD, everybody calls me AD, he goes, man, have Brooke, who's my wife now, he goes, man, have Brooke grab us some hot dogs. I said, bet. I was like Isaac from the Love Boat for the football team. You know? I looked up there in that section, I said, hey, babe, she came down and she grabs 2 hot dogs, and I put them under my jersey, and Tommy comes off. I don't know what had happened. There was a roar. I'm like, dang, if they score, maybe he'll come over. He goes, hey, did you get that hot dog? And I slipped him a hot dog. You just see, stuffs his hot dog in his mouth. So I had a little side hustle on the sideline, if you would. But those are things I'll never forget. And just to be a part of the whole pageantry and a part of, you know, some of the greatest athletes to play at Nebraska during that era. At 46, I didn't realize how blessed I was at 18, 19 years old to be a
Isn't
part
that usually
of history.
the story when you look back on growing up, your teens and probably your 20s, you don't realize those, you know, when you're in them, you don't realize those are the years that form the rest of your life.
They really do.
You make the bulk of your memories in those years.
Right.
And you don't we're too young and too dumb to realize that.
I like that. Too young and too dumb.
Yep.
Did you realize how it's special? Like, so, I mean, we're all looking back, it's 2020, like, to like those 94 and 95 and like that team, like at the moment, did you realize how big of an impact that era was going to have on college football forever?
I didn't. At the time, I honestly say I couldn't. Maybe some other guys did. It's sometimes familiarity breeds contempt. Mm-hmm. You just get used to it. But you also knew we were special. Now, I will say that you knew that we were pretty dang good. In that you look at the number, this is probably about 3 months ago, I'm sitting on the back deck and just couldn't sleep. You know, I pulled up on YouTube the 95 game against Florida, and I'm looking at the number of draft picks, the number of guys who played, not just made a team, I mean played longevity in the pros. And I was like, doggone, we had some serious talent. The older I get, the more I appreciate it. You know, but I really didn't realize it at the time. I knew we were good. And the thing about it was, we knew we were good. And that's a mindset.
Yeah.
And Coach Osborne and Coach McBride and that whole staff collectively ingrained that through us, even how we did things, because how you do some things is how you do everything. In a lot of ways in life, but in particular when you want to be a high caliber performing team, how you do some things is how you do everything. I remember times in practice, Coach Osborne would say, run it again. Like, Coach, run it again. And no one obviously said anything back, but you're thinking to yourself, man, we just aced this play. It had to become second nature.
Yeah.
And that's why most of Nebraska's games psychologically were done about midway through the second quarter. Third quarter was just punishing. I mean, you literally would just punish teams.
Remembering that mindset, not from a player standpoint, but just the fans, just knowing that it's a wash. I mean, you're going to be by the third quarter. If it's close, the fourth quarter, you're done.
It's a wrap.
Yeah, it was crazy. And I just thought that's the way that it always is going to be.
You know, there was an interesting stat that Coach Osborne shared. I would say it's not stat, but there's an interesting fact that he shared a few years back. One function, but he mentioned how the teams during that time, our opponents that we played, often lost the following week because they were physically beat up. We had a number of players that were out after playing us because we would physically punish you. Our practices were punishing. I mean, they were physical. I mean, Monday through Thursday. Thursday, you just kind of had helmets. We have shoulder pads, just helmets, I think, mostly on Thursday. But Monday through Wednesday, I mean, it was full bore. I mean, you were hitting every practice Monday through Thursday for the most part. And when it came time for game time, we were used to it. And you were so tired of beating each other up, you couldn't wait to see someone with a different color uniform on.
Right,
so,
yeah.
You know, the scout team guys, we took pride in it, man. We had absolute wars in that Cook Pavilion. I mean, it was fun. In fact, Kenny Wilhite, who played cornerback carries with the team now, is one of the assistant coaches, and he does recruiting, I believe high school and state recruiting. But we talk about that a lot. Me and those guys hang out quite a bit, but just how physical those practices were against the black shirts. You know, I was offensive scout team guy. We'd go against those black shirts every day. And we would fight like we hated each other for 2.5 hours. And then a lot of us were roommates. You know, me and Tyrell Williams and Barry Miles were all roommates. But we would go at it every day. There was no backing off. And that showed in games, though, too. Though. Mm-hmm. So those were some amazing times, man.
So you're in this place at the university. You decide to skip the 95 season, just get your degree. Did you want to eventually do something? I mean, you're a motivational speaker. Where did you get to the point in your life where you're thinking, man, I have a message. I have things that I can say that I can share with other people that will help. You've said a couple things in here that I mean, the way you do some things is the way you do everything. That's awesome. Did you make that up?
No.
Because that's really good.
No, I've heard that a number of times. My dad would always say, is how you do this is how you do everything.
That's amazing. I mean, your dad's great. So when did you realize you had a message you wanted to share with people and start this? Because, I mean, it's a business for you.
It is. And it was something that didn't happen on purpose. It was one of those things that just kind of, I would say life experiences created the path for it, too. I graduated and got my degree in psychology and in English. And my plans was to go to grad school and get my master's in psychology, you know. And then towards almost about January of my senior, I was like, dude, I'm not trying to be a psychologist. I don't want to do that. So I started bending more towards the sales area. So I did sales for a while with Dale Carnegie Corporation. I did that for a while. I worked for an organization called Campus Life, Youth for Christ. I did that for a while, which was a lot of fun working with youth. And then I had my roommate was killed about a year after that, 97. I'll never forget a group calling me and asking me, did I want to come speak about, domestic violence, because my roommate was murdered. I was like, no, I don't talk about that. Then Coach Brown gave me a buzz and asked if I want to talk about just being part of a championship team and the mindset it takes for that for one of his groups. I was like, that's cool, I did it. And I was in Seward, Nebraska, I'll never forget. And I loved it. And they paid me $50. I was like, word? You get paid for doing this?
I get paid?
I ain't get paid illegally. So I enjoyed it, man. And it just kind of just grew from there in that I continued to just do the speaking kind of here and there, but not charging anything, just groups around town, Boy Scouts and Cub Scouts and things like that. And then I started working for the university because I did go back and start working my master's, working my MBA. Well, the calls kept coming to start speaking for colleges, and I was like, I don't even know what I'm doing. So I talked with Coach Osborne and Coach Brown. They helped me out as far as the structure, how it works, payments. Stan Parker, another former Husker, Stan played offensive line here back in the early 80s, gave me a lot of direction. Just seeking counsel from my dad, too, and so I started speaking all at high schools and middle schools, elementary schools. Then I started going to a lot more colleges, speaking about, choices. And I always talk about the power of your choices. And a good friend of mine, a mentor, he's been one for years and he's retired now, but Max Callan used to be with Smith Hayes. He was a broker. And he says, AD, why don't you speak for corporate? Like, at that time, I'm like 24. I'm like, Max, about what? I'm 24 years old. He goes, being a part of a championship team, everybody matters, blah, blah, blah. And he goes on. I'm like, okay. Gave it some thought, and about a year later, started speaking in corporate America. So now 90% of my audience is corporate American associations, and I talk to them about the attitude of a champion, attitude of championship leadership, attitude of championship cultures, attitude of championship performers. So it's all about attitude. And so 90% is corporate. And I still speak to, well, not this year, of course, but still speak to well over 100,000 high school and college students a year across the country. So the social, if you go back, and some of the schools I still pinch myself, Notre Dame, USC, Penn State. And they're good people. Penn State, Florida, UC. I mean, I can go on and on. There's a number of colleges that I've been fortunate and blessed to speak for. Man, I still pinch myself when I'm speaking for those. And then your rural high school still, in Nebraska, throughout the country. Because of COVID, I did several virtual graduations for clients on the East and West Coast, that's
awesome.
It was awesome to do that. And it was sad to see those students just on monitors. But any way that you can help alleviate some of that, that angst and anxiety they had was cool. So man, I love what I do, man. It's been a blessing, man. It's been a fun ride.
So your business is really interesting because the business is you.
Yeah.
You aren't, we're going to talk to Vers later, and he sells pizza. We talked to Eric Crouch a couple weeks ago, and, with Crouch Recreation, your business is you.
Yeah.
How much was that in you to motivate and speak, and how much was it learned over time?
I would say a lot of it was learned, in that life experience has brought a lot of stories too, though. I think all around us, all of us, there's stories all around us all the time. And what it's taught me is to be cognizant of my surroundings, be cognizant of experiences. My truck, I get my journal on, use my phone quite a bit, the notes on there, but there's lessons in everything. And my mom, God rest her, would always say, baby boy, I'm the youngest out of 6 kids. She would always say, there's a message in the mess. There's always a message in the mess. So every time I go through something or going through something, I'm always just taking mental notes. There's a message here. And sometimes the message doesn't come right away. Time shows, but a lot of it wasn't right away. I still read a lot of books. Read a lot of books. When I first got started, of course, YouTube wasn't around. But I watched a lot of comedians too. Their delivery, the pause. Letting the audience catch up. Because
I was actually thinking that up just a few minutes ago when you were talking about speaking to corporate America, is that you're like you have a comedian. I mean, you have to create a set. Yes. You have to have a hook. You have to get the audience to buy in. You have to have a payoff. And to see that moment when the audience you guys are sinking, it's got to be pretty cool.
It is. And I tell you what, when you see an audience, when you know that they're getting, they're taking everything you're saying, it's a cool thing, but it's also responsibility. Because they are giving you something that they can never get back, and that's their time. So people often, I've been doing this for over 20 years now, people say, do you still get nervous? Hell yeah. Because to me, when you're no longer nervous, you don't care as much. That's just my personal opinion. I'm not going to make a blanket statement. For me, I always want that feeling like it's about to be game time. So I don't eat a whole lot before I speak.
Yeah.
It's maybe a power shake and some water right there, because I take it serious. And I know God has given me an opportunity, and I want to make sure I respect that time that they're giving me, because everybody in that audience, man, is hurting. Everybody's going through something. And hopefully you can say one thing to encourage them to go one more yard. Just don't look 50 yards. Don't even look at the end zone. Just go to the next yard marker. And I think especially right now during COVID, I mean, all of us, we got to think in yard increments.
Oh man, yeah.
Because, and not only that, but the end zone keeps changing on us.
Right.
To look that far is, it's ridiculous to do that. So I just want to focus on the next yard. And everybody in that audience is going through something. So I try to help them and myself, because everything I share, man, I need more than anybody else.
Yeah.
I got this stuff mastered.
And that's a big responsibility. And you're talking about everybody in the audience going through something. Do you have that story, that person that you touched that maybe 5-10 years later, they come back to you and say, listen, hearing you speak here or having you say this thing to me at a specific time really changed my life?
Those right there are the ones that keep me going when I don't feel like going. I've been through a lot of tragedy in the past 15 years. My brother was killed in 2009, about 6 blocks that way on his bicycle, riding his bike, hit by a car about 5:30 in the morning. Obviously, I told my roommate was murdered. A few other buddies who had committed suicide. Unexpectedly lost my mom in 2014. Cousin that was just a few years older than me, pancreatic cancer. I mean, it's just, all of us got stuff.
Sure.
But it was just, I was wearing a black suit so often. It was just like, man, it's bad when you know all the funeral directors in town.
That's not a good thing. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. Particularly hearing the guy who was just like, AD, I'm sorry, it's here again. But with each one of those, there comes a message, sometimes through an email or something on social media. Man, what you said helped me do this. I'll never forget the one that this lady, and I wish I had the note with me. We knew this going this direction. I don't know this lady from Adam. And she's from up in Northeast Nebraska. I believe it's either Ainsworth or Atkinson. She sends me a card every year right before the passing of my mom. My mom passed away September 18th of 2014. I get just right in my post office box over there every year for the past 5 years. My mom's been gone 6 years. So every year, this 5th year she's done it, she sends me a card to let me know she's thinking about me and praying for me. And the words that I shared with her still impacts her this day.
That's incredible.
I don't know this lady from Adam. Yeah, I mean, it still does me right now.
That's incredible.
I don't know this lady from Adam, but every year about September 16th or 17th.
Just 2 weeks ago, you got another card.
Yeah, another card from her. I don't know. And I always send her one back, but I've never met her. But I'm thinking, that is intentional.
Yeah.
You know, so it's things like that really, I'm just like, God, I thank you. I appreciate that it's touching somebody's heart. It's planting some seeds, and hopefully they're getting a harvest from that of something, you know, of just positivity, of encouragement to keep going that one more yard.
Yeah. Well, every year we see you at Remington. That's like our time where we do a Facebook Live.
Yeah, we're grinding.
And you always seem like it's so automatic. It's not like I need to look through my notes. I need to do this. It seems like you're always on, always prepared. And one thing I always appreciate about Remington is not only do you connect with the audience, you connect the audience with themselves. And you really get that. You always make people like introduce themselves to people or like say a couple of things to each other. And I've always just appreciated how that event like really tied those individuals there. Hey, we're going to be here for 2 hours. We're going to eat a steak as big as our head. We're going to hear from some like sports legend, but you're directing that whole thing, and not only directing the speakers and everything, but you're directing the energy of that event. And it's something that I always thought you did extremely well.
Chris,
it seems like it's
it.
second nature to you.
You know, first of all, I appreciate it, man. I really do, because that event, I mean, that is a privilege. That is like the Heisman Trophy of offensive linemen. You know, so it is a privilege to do that. And to your point, I mean, you explained it all. When you're going to be there for 2 hours with those people at your tables, why not have them introduce themselves to each other and to walk away a little better? Yeah, it's about a trophy, but it's about life. And you know the thing that's ironic, Chris? You've been there for how many years now?
Oh yeah, 5 years.
Long time.
Yeah.
Every year that room makeup is going to be different.
Oh yeah.
Because each year, now you'll just have different people who buy tickets, but some people literally will not be on this earth the next year.
Yeah.
And so I always keep that forefront in my mind, in that this is going to be possibly mine, possibly yours. This is going to be somebody's last Remington Award. Yeah. Make the best of it.
That's heavy, man. But it's true.
It's truth.
Absolutely true.
It's the truth. It could be mine, it could be yours. I mean, I just try to think that way and keep that cognizant, and it keeps me mentally and spiritually and just life, just sober minded. It's like, man, this could be the last one, so make it count.
It makes you not want to waste at any moment an opportunity for anything.
For anything, man. I think if COVID's taught me anything, is that you better just relish the days. The crap, the bull, all of it. You know, just relish it, because everybody's going to have a last day one of these days.
Yeah.
So let's talk about COVID. It's been real tough on musicians, restaurants, bars, athletes, motivational speakers who, you know, depend on these corporations bringing them in to motivate their employees, and everything's been switched to Zoom and Teams and Skype and all of this. And immediately what I found you doing is continuing the message, but on Instagram and LinkedIn and Twitter. Like talk about how you responded to COVID by keeping the message going.
Okay, March 11th is when I haven't been on an airplane since March 8th.
Oh yeah.
You know, and not been on one, and which is crazy. But March 11th is when my business, when I felt it. I got a number of calls that day and emails of rebookings, cancellations, reschedules. And I remember that night, fellas, just sitting in my home office with my head in my hands saying, God, why is this happening to me? It's like, bruh, this is happening to the world. It's called a world pandemic, all right? You ain't the only one, knucklehead. And you know what I did, man, is I washed my face, of just saying, okay. And I started sharing this with my audience. You can see on there, man, on the social handles. I started focusing on, in fact, yesterday I just repeated that message. I said, I'm going to focus on the cans, not the cans. I'm going to focus on what I can do, not what I can't do. So I decided, I said, I'm doing a 40-day deal to where I'm making a video every day, even Saturday and Sunday. I was dropping videos on there every single day. Different words of encouragement, just short 60 seconds, because we're a soundbite society anyway, so 60 seconds. And that right there, and I switched everything, just my little iPhone right there, uploaded all the different platforms. And fellas, the number of responses from people, emails, messages, that I needed that. Because you know what? I needed it too. Because when you feel helpless, be helpful. Whenever you feel helpless, just go help somebody. Because it takes it off of you, takes the attention off of you and puts it on someone else. So I just said, I'm going to be helpful when I'm feeling helpless. And not only that, my business grew as a result virtually. Because people were saying, hey, our people need to hear this message. They're down in the dumps. And once companies kind of found their stride, as far as they were going to be working from Zoom or, GoToMeeting, whatever their, their platform is going to be, I do those all the time now. But COVID hit hard. You guys both know this too. Many of you listening get this too. And to those of you listening right now, you may be struggling. In fact, there's a good chance if you're not now, you have. If you haven't, you will. And that's just a reality. But just keep going. Because during times of crisis, you can either panic or you can pivot. That's it.
Right.
You can panic or you can pivot. Panicking doesn't do anything. Panicking makes you anxious. It elicits depression, anger, and all sorts of stuff. But when you pivot, that's action. That's you're doing something productive about your current situation. And then you plan. So I had to realize panicking and being pissed off wasn't doing anything. Now, I'll say this as a disclaimer. You're human. You're going to be pissed off at times. You're going to panic at times. You're going to be down sometimes. And that's okay. And I share with people all the time, what's September right now, towards the end of it, of course, but September being Suicide Prevention Month, man, people are hurting out there right now in every area of their lives. So I don't want to be like I'm remiss, just be motivated. No. I get it. It's okay not to be okay. There's going to be, and you look at our athletes right now, we know because the rates as far as depression, it's high. Suicide rates are high with athletes and former athletes as well. It's okay not to be okay. But there's also help out there. We can be alone, but not alone. There's help that's out there. So those of you who are listening, if you're going through a tough time, there's a suicide prevention hotline. There's NEMA.org, which is an organization, NAMI.org. NAMI.org has a number of resources on their websites, international, I believe, as far as mental health, etc. So, but when COVID hit, man, it changed the game for everybody. For you guys, for us, for college football, for pro football, for sports and business around the world. But the key thing is during this is to pivot and plan. Yes, you're going to panic at times. You're going to be down at times, but just don't stay there.
Yeah.
And if you need help getting up, that's okay. In football, we had amazing trainers. When we got hurt, they would help us up and they would help us get well. There's nothing wrong with saying I need help. It's a sign of strength, not a sign of weakness.
Absolutely. I think that's a great place to end it.
That's awesome.
We appreciate you being on Red to Black.
Thank you.
It's an honor to talk to you. I see your Instagram. I see all the motivational things that you put up every day. You were a force for positive. Anybody would be lucky to have you speak to their organization. And we appreciate you taking some time out of your day to speak with us.
I enjoyed it, fellas.
What are your socials, people to track you down?
Yes, if you go to Instagram, it's Aaron Davis, Attitude Expert. So again, on Instagram, it's Aaron Davis, Attitude Expert. If you go to Twitter, it's AC Davis, or just go to Aaron Davis. It's on there too. LinkedIn is Aaron Davis. And Facebook, if you go to Aaron Davis Presentations, that's on there as well.
Awesome. Thanks, man. Thanks for being on Red Black.
Thanks, fellas. Appreciate it, man.
A Hurrdat Media Production.